Oh, there we go.
It's letting me record, so we're
Okay.
good to go.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. July 13th, 9:30 a.m. Let's go ahead and call the City of Port Orchard's Economic Development Tourism Committee to order. If we just want to circle around the room real quick, introduce yourself for the audio. We'll start with Mr. Bond. I'll introduce himself for him.
Oh,
Nick
we're
Bond is
introducing.
present.
Sorry, I thought I was first on the agenda, and I didn't even see that I was on the agenda. So, Nick Bond, Community Development.
Matt.
Matt Murphy, Orchard Chamber of Commerce.
Jack. Jack, we have a audio problem on your side. We did not hear what you said. Nope. Nope. Well, while he plays around with that, Jack Edwards is present in the meeting this morning. We'll move on to Brandy. You're on mute, Brandy.
There you go. Brandy Rainierson, City Clerk.
Thank you. Carrie.
Carrie Salee, Long Range Planner.
Beck.
Beck Ashby, Port Orchard City Council.
Fred.
Fred Chang, Council Member.
And I'm Sean Kuchardi, Council Member. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to our agenda this morning. And our first discussion item is the extended foot ferry for 2020. And Brandy's going to lead us through that.
Yes, so it's more of an update and looking for direction on how to proceed to move forward. So in previous years, we have reached out to Kitsap Harbor Tours and entertained a contract with them to provide some additional foot ferry service during the summer hours to help support our festivals downtown. So in May, we reached out to the city of Bremerton to let them know that the governor had put a lift on public gathering, or had put a order to have no public gathering. And so when we spoke to the city of Bremerton's mayor and our Port Orchard mayor, they agreed that let's put this contract on hold and see what becomes of the governor's order. And then as you most of you, if not all of you, know that the governor still has not lifted the more than 50 gathering at this time. And so it's more of a check-in, or do we want to just put this contract on hold and not do it for this year and reevaluate for next year? As you may recall, the funding of $2,500 is from our lodging tax funds. And so the purpose of that is to promote tourism. For the city of Port Orchard, the city of Bremerton uses their general fund. I know that they were still interested in pursuing the services of Kitsap Harbor Tours to help, hopefully, with the commute between city of Bremerton and the city of Port Orchard, not only as a tourism mechanism, but just partnering with the community and having communities more united, if you will, outside of tourism. And so I'm not sure what they're going to do, but I'll reach out to them after this committee meeting and meeting with the mayor to see how we want to move forward. But I'm assuming since we're still in phase 2 and we're not sure when phase 3 is going to be, phase 3 is the point where you can have 50 or more people gathering, at least from his last plan. So with that, I will open up to the committee to see if we should just postpone this till next year, or if we want to hold off and maybe do something in the fall. Just looking for direction from the committee.
Perfect. Just a quick little recap. We had two guests join us just now, and the discussion item is just kind of reconvening about the extended summer foot ferry schedule. Typically, the city of Port Orchard partners with the city of Bremerton for additional funding to operate the foot ferry, especially during the different festival season, both in Port Orchard and Bremerton. And obviously, with the impacts of COVID, we're just reopening that conversation. These funds for Port Orchard are a derivative of our lodging tax fund. And so that's just a little bit of backstory. Does anyone have any comments on this issue?
I would just say that the allocation that the city of Port Orchard received this year was expressly for the festival weekends. In the past, we had done it on Sundays, starting well, with the parade the end of June, we did it on Sundays. And this year that was limited to specific festival days. So if those festivals are not happening, then I don't believe we have the authority to execute the contract.
Thank you, Beck. Fred, did you have a comment?
I was going to ask Brandy, what is left in the season? Were we originally scheduled for something over Labor Day?
Yes, Labor Day Memorial Day was the Sunday, because I don't think Monday was covered. I think it was that Sunday was part of that funding. And it's my understanding that that event has been canceled.
The Sunday of Labor Day.
Yes,
September 6th, okay.
Labor Day.
Yeah, we were supposed to have taste of that day for the Port Orchard Bay Street Association. And we're still going to do a different version of taste of, encouraging people to go to the restaurants in South Kitsap, but there won't be any gathering downtown. And the Blackberry Festival, I'm not exactly sure what it is they've done, but they've moved theirs to Olympic College and are doing something different spread out there as well. So, I mean, we're hoping to bring people to come over to Port Orchard to go to South Kitsap restaurants, but we're really covering all South Kitsap restaurants. So people are going to need a car if it works the way we hope it works. So we're doing that, I think Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Is that right, Chris? I think that's what we decided.
Either Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I don't remember.
Yeah. So, but I don't think the foot ferries can make a difference to that.
Yeah, and just another, I don't know, point to consider is I don't know that there's an industry sector that's been hit harder by this pandemic than hotels. And so I'd anticipate that lodging tax receipts for 2020 are going to be almost a record low. And so this does give us an opportunity to save those funds and any other funds. And as we hopefully roll into 2021 with a different outlook, that there's resources there to support, you know, the different groups that have typically applied for these funds to get those activities back off the ground in a strong manner. So any other comments from anybody on this issue?
I would say, Brandy, the direction you're looking for is we're going to suspend that contract for this summer.
Perfect. Okay, I will communicate that with the City of Bremerton as well as Kitsap Harbor Tours.
Perfect. Okay. Let's move on to item number 2, and this is related to lodging tax funding. Brandy, you're up again.
Yes. So Lodging Tax Committee is under the Economic Development Committee. So they get their direction from the Economic Development Committee on moving forward and other applications that the city may want to entertain for lodging tax funds. So again, I just taking this opportunity to update the committee on where we're at with the lodging tax funds. I did provide a report from our finance director that outlines who has submitted to date and what the balance of that is, as well as a budget summary report. So there's 2 different reports that you can look at. If you have any questions, let me know and I can ask the finance director to get the answer to those questions. So lodging tax application is probably about a 2 to 3 months process. And so the first step is to get the allocation amount for the next year from the finance director. I do have that allocation amount. He has 2 options that the committee can consider. And so once we get the allocation amount from the finance director, staff works on getting the application ready with the lodging tax chair. And or the committee if the chair feels that it needs to go before the committee to finalize. So we are planning on opening up the lodging tax application probably mid-August, maybe first part of September. That's typically when we do that. And then the lodging tax committee meets sometime in September and October to put in line with the budget adoption first part of December, with some opportunity for the council to meet either work study style or at the regular council meeting to take action. I can't remember if I provided the email or if just the reports to the committee as part of the packet. But what the finance director has indicated to me is that For 2021, since there hasn't been much activity in the funds for 2020, he projects that it's going to be $100,000 for 2021 distribution for the lodging tax funds. And basically, it's a carryover, if you will. We don't carry it over, but as he looks at what's been expended this year, what's being collected this year, what's in the reserve, he believes that we can redistribute $100,000 next year.
We have on the meeting today, the Zoom call, we have Matt representing the chamber and both Corinne and Chris representing the Port Orchard Bay Street Association. Chris also represents the Sydney Museum. And those are some of our largest users of the LTAC. So my question to those three participants is, what type of reimbursement are you going to be seeking the rest of the year? Because you've all received awards and we have not had a lot of activity to reimburse funds to you. Do you anticipate minimal, or will you be requesting your full reimbursement this year?
So I know that the chamber, obviously a portion of our reimbursement was for events like Seagull and things like that. We won't be seeking any reimbursement for that. We'll be looking at, you know, a minimal reimbursement of basically the expenses that we have, or no matter what, website, you know, some staffing and some of those expenses as a result of you know, the work that we have done. People still request information. It's weird. Like, yeah, I'll give you information, but you can't come. You know, so you know, that's really what we're looking at is you know, kind of our fixed expenses, very little on the variable side. So it'll mainly be limited to the you know, the website and administrative costs. So nowhere near the 21,000 that we were allocated.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Chris speak to it because she's been treasurer for the POBSA for a long time. But well, it'll be minimal from us as well. You know, we'll see if anything still takes place this fall because we had several into the holiday season in particular. But you think that's a fair answer, Chris?
Yeah, we have a little bit of advertising, so I would say if the most that we'll use up is coming out of the tourism marketing bucket rather than the event bucket. So we've been doing some advertising around when you feel comfortable and things look up, please remember to come to Port Orchard kind of advertising in various places. And we did some advertising at the first of the year, but we're not doing the tourism map or the walking map this year. And we're not, and for event type marketing purposes, it'll be minimal stuff around the Taste of Port Orchard. And like Corinne said, just depending on how things go, whether we can actually do anything in the fall. So I would say we won't get anywhere close to the total amount.
Okay.
And for
Do we still fund your website, Chris?
I'm sorry?
Do we still fund your website?
The cost for that right now is just really maintenance type costs. So that's really small.
That's really minimal. Okay. So that gives us a good idea, Brandy, of our three of our recipients as to what they'll be looking for. So.
Absolutely.
Do we know the one report, the budget report that shows $45,000 income? Is that year to date or is that the projection still?
I don't know. I think Brandy's looking that up.
Yeah.
I would have to ask the finance director. I'm not quite sure. I know that there was some concerns about releasing the amount of revenue that we received, but I'm assuming if it's a whole dollar, it's going to be okay to release. I can step out of the room and ask him if he's available to join the committee and answer those questions for you if you'd like.
That or what we could do, Matt, is we could add this agenda item onto next month's and really take a deeper dive with all the details. We'll probably have really clarity of what those final amounts will be, but if we'd like to go see if Noah was available, we certainly could.
Because how much of the budget, when he says 100,000, is that based upon estimates, or is that typically based on, is it an arrears type budget?
This is his statement regarding the 100,000 for 2021. He says, while I don't think we'll collect that this year, well, let me go back to it. I would be happy to attend the meeting if you would like me to. So I did let him know of the meeting, and he said if so I didn't know if he was going to attend or if he's waiting for me to physically ask him. So he is available and is aware of the meeting if you'd like me to go have him come. He said, as far as budgeting for next year, I'm anticipating using 100,000 for expenditure. While I do not think we'll collect that this year with all the events that did not move forward, we will have sufficient fund balance to allocate 100,000 in 2021. Now in 2022, we may have a reduction in projects and revenues are falling short due to COVID-19. If you want to discuss, we may want to even it out for 21, 22 and have even levels of funding, 75,000 for 1 year, 75,000 for the next year, rather than 100,000 for 2021 and 50,000 for 2022. He'd be happy to discuss this with me or the chair of the lodging tax committee. But again, he's made himself available and I can go see if he's able to attend the meeting if you'd like.
Yeah, and Matt, my understanding is it's the funds collected throughout this entire fiscal year. So obviously you're going to look at trends, you're going to look at variances over past years. But I think where the finance director feels confident that we could probably get back to that 100 number is just due to the fact that we didn't expend dollars in 2020. So there will be a large variance shortfall in 2020 of collections, but with some of those reserves. And so I think as we move forward, yeah, we'll have to take a look at policy and determine, do we want to stay with that full 100, just as the finance director said, or maybe go to 75? And I said, I don't know when we're going to know more information, but I have a funny feeling things are going to continue to go backwards before they get better again. That's what my crystal ball is telling us.
Sean, would you like to perhaps bring this back to our August meeting with the finance director? Because I believe, and do the deeper dive you were talking about, because I do believe Brandy said they typically start that process in August or so. So we should have a pretty good idea before we do a call for projects.
Yeah, absolutely. So
and for what it's worth, in the email, he did title that second report, LTAC Review and Expenses Report, provides a summary of revenues and expenses year to date. So I suspect that 43,000 or 45,000 is the revenue that we've received year to date. Year to date as of July when he ran it. I don't know what the query was, if he went from January to June or January to May. I'm not quite sure, but he did run it in July.
We'll get those details just so we have the full. Seems like a really high number if it's year to date from January with very, very little occupancy the last four or 5 months. But we'll get that information and the timing should be perfect, as we said. So Carrie, could you just make sure to add that to the agenda for next month?
Yes, I will.
And will you invite the finance director as part of your normal spiel, or do you want me to invite him?
No, I'll make sure that Noah is CC'd when the packet goes out.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Any other comments regarding lodging tax funding at this time? All right, seeing there's none, we'll move on. I added this agenda item just to kind of get an update. It's been a month and would just love to hear from our business guests on the phone of just if they're hearing anything different on the streets. I think that the mayor is recommending that we move forward with a grant process for small businesses in Port Orchard. As you know, the state has allocated some CARES Act funding to cities, and the mayor has proposed that we take about 25% of that and use it to support our local businesses. But I just was curious if there's any other needs out there that maybe we're unaware of, and if there's anything we can do to continue to support our businesses in Port Orchard at this time. So any updates, any word on the street of something that might be relevant for this group to consider or discuss? Start with you, Matt.
Well, I've been working with the mayor on the distribution of the PPE. And then with PETA and the state on the distribution of no-touch thermometers. I'm getting out there quite a bit. You know, the big kicker is that you know, if we could give out more PPE, you know, because right now I'm basically giving it out in 10-piece bundles. But I think most of the businesses have come to grips with it and have figured out that, hey, I gotta have this stuff. And so, you know, you go to a lot of businesses and they got the box of masks behind the counter. And one of the things that we talked about in one of our chamber calls is, you know, perhaps it's hard, and I'm going to make a video on it, but people can't blame the businesses for problems. Okay, I mean, the mask situation is not their fault. And you read some of the websites and it's like, damn businesses, I'm never going in there again, those SOBs, and you know, and they're really slamming the businesses. I think like I'm working on a video that basically says don't blame the businesses, but one of the things that was suggested, and you can use CARES money for it, is maybe some additional some signage, you know, some stuff that's downtown that basically says, I don't know, whatever the message is, mask up because you care, or you know, whatever that thing is, because I mean, that's the message that we need to get out, is that it's not the business's fault. Don't take it out on the businesses. Anything the city can do, any money that they can throw at that for additional signage, for advertising, you know, some Facebook boosts or something just to get the word out. I think that's the most important thing right now. Businesses are struggling. I know you guys have seen the numbers. March, we were down like 1-2%. In April, we were actually above budget on sales tax revenue for the city. You know, so the big boxes aren't doing bad, and you know, but it's the small businesses that are still taking it in the short. Anything we can do to help the small businesses stay open, and that's particularly important. Like you, Sean, my crystal ball is kind of saying things are going to get worse before they get better as far as the businesses are concerned. If we roll things back, it's gonna suck big time.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's great information, and I'll make sure to relay that up to the mayor. I'll ask the mayor to have a conversation with our new PIO, Public Information Officer, and let's see if we can create a strategy to support your messaging. I think that's the right thing to do.
We should talk some more about that too, Matt, because we just last week, Chris and I were kind of brainstorming about adding to our social media photos of merchants, customers, people strolling downtown with masks to make people feel more comfortable about coming downtown. Even some business owners are really a little fearful to reopen. So, we've done nothing other than we ended up with some pictures of Fathom's princesses this weekend from our little sailboat selfie thing. But you know, there are several businesses that can't open. They're retail, but they're in teeny tiny spaces. And until we're in phase 3, and even then, I mean, when you've got a 14 by 14 square foot boutique, which is the size of the one in the market, yeah, it's phase 2 is 30%, I think, occupancy or capacity for retail, something like that. So anyway, so that's the problem. There's several businesses downtown that are just they just feel like they're too small. It's not worth it to open. So
if there's some way for the city council and the mayor to exempt something on the sidewalks, or close down one side of the parking and use that for, you know, let people move out of their stores onto the street.
Yeah, Chris and I talked about that because Paulsbo, and I don't know exactly where this went, but Paulsbo put up some kind of proposal to do basically some version of sidewalk sales. And I talked just briefly with Rob about it, but you know, he felt like if we used the sidewalks, then we needed to have the parking lane for pedestrians or deal with the state for the road. And we haven't really gone any further than that. I know Sam at Josephine's would like to do some very casual pop-up vendors things outdoors. There's plenty of spaces that could be done, and that there's plenty of space where you can spread that out in social distance. But that's the problem. There's a lot of little stores that just don't have enough room to do much business or retail. So.
Now, I obviously won't speak for the other committee members, but on that note, what might be easier, I think it would be easier for me if we had, individual businesses or a group of businesses just submit a plan for that. This is what we would like to do, and in that kind of, form, that type of variance they'd be looking for. But instead of us just trying to go out and say, hey, let's just do blank and hopefully it covers the whole spectrum, it'd be great to hear from Josephine's or from that specific, business owner that this is what I'd like to do. This is what makes sense for me, right? I'm going to be able to open up on these 4 hours on these days. I'd like this. And if they could help be a part of that conversation, I think it would be much easier for the council to address that.
Yeah, it could even be staggered, one business does it one day and another business does it another. I mean, our sidewalks aren't huge, but they're bigger than some cities, plus covered. And we haven't gotten far on this either, but we're brainstorming and welcome to any suggestions of how we could still maybe somehow do some kind of, not ladies' night out, but ladies' night week or 3 or 4 day where we spread things out, we stagger activities. And I don't know what that looks like, but that's supposed to be October 2nd. And of course we didn't have the spring one. So, but yeah, any ideas you guys have on that, but we'll put our heads together and maybe come back to the city.
What comes to my mind, 2 things, and one, talking about use of the sidewalks. I think it would be easy. It may be a little more difficult for the businesses, but I think it'd be easier for the city if you did something in the back parking lot and not play in front of the merchants.
I know, that's exactly what Rob said. And yeah, I mean,
that's just an idea. I'm just throwing it out there. I think it's easier to manage. We don't have to deal with Washington State Department of Transportation.
Exactly.
A lot of things. But the other thing that we've done this morning is we've talked about retail and the small retail. And I really think some of our personal service business, that particular sector has been hit as hard or harder. Some of these folks, and let me just use Monica Adams as an example.
Mm-hmm.
A massage therapist who works out of her house.
Mm-hmm.
She's gone, I'm sure, without income for some time.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not alone in that. She's just comes to mind quickly. And I'm not sure how we help those types of businesses, but I see that as a sector that could really use some support.
I agree. I mean, restaurants were fortunate in that they did have the option to do takeout, which of course we didn't miss a day. We just moved from one into the other. But the salons and the art gallery still can't open. That's really unfortunate. Mallory just started opening a little bit. There's a lot of businesses that suffered. So, the one thing about out back is, you're kind of missing the people that are going to go out back are more than likely the ones who already are on that side of the street. Just realistically, I don't see people like Seaside Blonde packing up and going out there. Now, I don't know what her plans are. She hasn't, I've reached out to her a couple of times and haven't heard from her, but some of those people would go right out on the sidewalk. So it's hard to convince them to do something differently.
Well, it doesn't, in a lot of instances, Beck, it doesn't make any sense. We couldn't at the gallery
take all your art
down to the back end at all. And Studio 7 and 24 couldn't really do it either.
Yeah. You could easily, just individual businesses, yours, could go out in your yard and not have to use the sidewalk.
Right. We could use our side yard. We were planning that if we got to do the show this month for the reception.
Yeah.
But Nick, what is kind of the minimum sidewalk width we need to maintain for ADA or whatever requirements are?
I believe that you can in places go down to 36 inches, but it can only be for a certain length that it can be that narrow. Otherwise, I believe it's got to be, or maybe it's 42 inches. Otherwise, I believe it's got to be 60 inches clear zone.
Even 5 feet, I mean, that's enough to let GG's and Seaside put a table out and put a rack out. You know, and I guess, Corrine, you know, really, since the city is so complaint driven, you know, I shouldn't say this here, but I mean, is it easier to ask forgiveness than permission for some of these businesses to roll a rack out onto the sidewalk on
You're
a
asking
Saturday?
the wrong person.
I know this is probably the wrong venue, but
No, I mean, I'm definitely a more of a ask forgiveness person.
yeah.
Well, and
So
that was my comment right earlier. It's like I think we all have to look at this everything differently, right? What happened in the past is different. We need to have open minds. And so I would like that if there's a specific business owner with a specific idea that helps them, right? Because maybe one rack isn't enough for them to open their store, incur the additional expenses, labor, but maybe it is. And so if they have a plan, I'd ask them to bring it forward and let us consider it, right? And I know this is cliche, but we are all in this together. And so let's have those conversations. Let's try to do the right thing, and let's figure out a way to get to yes instead of figure out a way to get to no.
So our code, I mean, not directly answering your question, Matt, about what you do on a Saturday, but our code provides a street use permit that gives you permission to use the street or the sidewalk if you want to. If you wanted to mark off one of the parking stalls and get permission. I mean, I forget the name of the video series we watched years ago with Tim Mathis, where he was talking about setting up restaurants in the parking lane and having outdoor seating spill into the parking stall where they build like decks. We put in place a code that allows that. You just have to add us as additionally insured to your insurance so that if somebody trips over your rack, the city's not on the hook for it.
Okay. That was Roger Brooks.
Roger Brooks, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe Chris, we pursue this some more. Maybe that's how Ladies Night Week or whatever. I don't know. But we'll talk with some merchants, Sean, and see if
come up with a plan.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. I think we all collectively agree. We want to think outside the box and support these people. I don't believe there's resistance to it, but unfortunately there will be certain regulations that need to be followed, and Nick's statement on insurance is but one of those.
We miss summer tourism and fall holiday. We're really in bad shape.
No doubt.
Beck, I don't know, you know, I mean, outside of the rent relief program that both the county and the city are kicking off. The county's press release went out this morning for theirs. You know, and of course, Monica doesn't qualify for that relief. You know, I don't know what we can do. A lot of the personal businesses, they didn't shut down. Lawyers are still operating from home and
Right. I think it depends entirely upon the type of personal service you were providing.
Sort of writing a check to them. I don't know what more we can do. I mean, once they do open, we can help promote them. You know, but other than that, yeah, they're in a bad spot.
Very, very complicated as these business owners are trying to look at break-even analysis and when it even makes sense to open. Like I said, if they can't see enough customers in a day, it doesn't take much for your expenses to far exceed your revenues, and you're unfortunately better off staying closed. So it's quite a dilemma.
And I know you guys all know about this Full Circle Meals project that Steve initiated and we worked on for months, and it's actually kind of you know, on hiatus, not because there's no more money. We've raised $270,000, but the reason I bring it up is because he'd like to keep it going, in particular for caterers. They're caterers, they're not restaurants, and they're, you know, the summer season is their Christmas season for events and weddings and anniversaries and corporate picnics and stuff like that. So, and a lot of them have pivoted to do more box meals. You know, I'm thinking particularly of Crescent Moon Catering in Port Orchard, which does great food. So if you need they do box meals, just like a restaurant, takeout. So, but caterers and event venues. I mean, it's not good.
one other just thought that just came to mind back to this idea of these little pop-up outdoor stores. I was in Silverdale last week and noticed that Dick's Sporting Goods has this large tent sale for the month of July. They're basically taking, I think, probably dead inventory from regional stores, and they're using that particular outlet to liquidate it. I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to work with a local vendor that, like, an event rentals company who's probably really slow right now too, because the events aren't happening, and we could put some sort of a pop-up tent, somewhere and rotate it through to have that kind of tent sale type of an environment. It's just a thought.
Sure.
Okay, well, any other commentary on just kind of the state of our local businesses as it relates to COVID? We'll look forward to hearing, please spread the word through the associations, chamber, and POBSA, and if there's specific, ideas that these local business owners have, please bring them forward. I think we definitely want to be a part of that conversation. And at this time, I'll call for any good of the orders. Any other conversations or ideas or talking points? Go ahead, Nick.
So in your packet, we had provided some permit information just for the month of June. And I was just going to supplement that by reporting that we received our OFM population estimates for April 1st, 2020. Those came out at the end of the month. And we grew by 390 residents, which is up relative to previous years slightly. Some of that we dug into the OFM data a little bit more and noticed that they were reporting our vacancy rates as being closer to 6 or 7%, which did not seem right for multifamily housing. And we were able to get some data from a private company and submit it to OFM, and that actually increased our population number by about 100 persons over what it would have been. But in any event, we are right now at 14,770 people. We also, hang on, my phone is ringing here and I'm looking for the do not disturb button. In terms of permit activity, I checked with the building department this morning, and we've issued 64 single family residential permits year to date. And we have 23 ready to issue that just need to be paid for and picked up. And so pretty on track relative to the last couple of years. And I think we might even exceed what we did last year for residential construction. And the big news is we have 13 permits in for apartment buildings, totaling more than 200 units in for review right now. And unfortunately, our building inspector is a little behind on reviewing those, but we are getting through them. And so you're going to see a lot of multifamily construction in the next 12 or 18 months. And I think that's going to pretty significantly boost our population over the next year or two. So, but if there's any questions about the permits that were in that report, I'm happy to address them if you want to know something about one of the projects.
Great. Any other comments? Okay.
More people are going to move here from Seattle.
That's exactly right. That's why we need to keep our local business community strong, because I think there is a light at the end of this tunnel.
I'm curious, the Concept Transit and the Southworth Ferry, any word on that?
You mean the fast ferry?
Yeah.
I know it's behind. I don't remember the details. I mean, yeah, but it's because it was originally this fall was the plan, but it's still on track. It's just slowed down.
They're posting that it'll be 2020 and nobody believes them, but they did show pictures of one of the boats. So it is around. It still has plastic on the seats, so it looks like it's ready to go.
That's up on Whidbey, isn't it? They're working on that one.
I think so. I didn't pay much attention because it's Southworth. I'm more Bremerton focused. So.
Yeah, but Fred's right. I mean, it's still going to happen. It's just not going to happen when they thought. And yes, a lot of people don't believe it'll ever happen and think, well, there you go. Port Orchard and South Kitsap are getting short shifted again, but that's not true. It was always going to be the third. It had to be the third one because
I was just wondering, because that's going to affect our population. Like you said, Corinne, more people are going to be coming this direction when when they find out that they can get Seattle a lot quicker.
I just think people want to get out of Seattle.
So I thought of two other announcements I should make. The downtown sub-area plan that is under development right now, that survey is still open. And so if you haven't taken that survey yet, please do. That's kind of the kickoff to our public participation process on that project. And then also we've worked to develop a plan for the area near the intersection of Sydney and Sedgwick. We're calling it the Ruby Creek Neighborhood Plan. And that is online now as well. And that's going to a hearing before the Planning Commission in the beginning of August. And if you have any comments or thoughts on that plan, please take a look. And you can email our department any comments that you have on the plan prior to the hearing or attend the hearing.
Great. Okay, last call for comments.
Can I call you after this?
Sure.
So we'll go ahead and adjourn for today, and we'll look forward to seeing everyone next month. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.